Undying has always been known as a lane bully and support hero. But in patch 7.39c, he has fully transitioned into one of the strongest offlaners in Dota 2. His ability to dominate lanes with Decay, control fights with Tombstone, and scale into a nearly unkillable frontliner makes him a tier S pick in the current meta. High rank players and even professional teams are using him frequently, and he is one of the most banned heroes in recent tournaments. This guide will walk you through everything you need to know about playing Undying in the offlane, from the laning phase and skill build to item choices, teamfight positioning, synergies, and common mistakes to avoid. If played correctly, Undying not only crushes lane but also dictates the entire pace of the game. Let's dive in. The laning phase is where Undying builds the foundation for the rest of the map. Your primary weapon is Decay. Each cast lowers the enemy's maximum health while boosting your own, giving you an immediate advantage in trade. By stacking Decay on both enemy heroes, you make them fragile while turning yourself into a tank that can win trades with ease. Start with Tango, Magic Stick, Quelling Blade, Circlet, and Iron Branch plus 1 or 2 mangoes. This setup gives you enough regeneration and mana to keep Decay going. A Magic Stick is particularly important because charges will pile up quickly as enemies try to fight back with spells. At level 2, you normally pick up Tombstone. This ability can force enemies to retreat or even secure an early kill, but it's important to be deliberate with its use. Place a Tombstone on high ground, behind trees, or in other difficult spots so the enemy can't easily destroy it. A badly placed Tombstone is often wasted, but a well placed one can win the lane outright. Level 3 is where you feel your first big spike. With 2 points in Decay, you can confidently trade into both enemy heroes. At this stage, you don't need to win the lane with last hits. Instead, your goal is to deny the enemy carries farm by making their lane experience miserable. By level 4, add a point into Soul Rip for utility. It can burst down a low enemy or heal your spot in a clutch moment. Use it sparingly, and as it is a mana intensive spell, but it can be the difference between winning and losing an early skirmish. The most important rule in lane is to play around cooldowns. Without Tombstone or Flash Golem, you are far less threatening. Don't throw away your advantage by fighting at the wrong moment. Okay, so another big point to add is, just now I mentioned that you feel really strong at level 3, which is kind of true because your Decay is on a shorter cooldown now, and it's just more damage in general. But to be honest, there's a lot of kill potential at level 2 automatically. So what I think the easiest thing I can tell you is that if you're fighting into any like low HP or like agility or intelligence carries, then you can just straight up when you hit level 2, and if they are not close to their tower, just dump the tomb in front of them and Decay, and you can beat the shit out of them. The moment they are on the last hit on the tomb, you can deny the tomb, but if they stand their ground, they're usually dead. And especially if you have a +1, so any support at level 2 will definitely also be a power spike. So yeah, go ham. So now to talk about the skill build. The standard skill build for an offlane Undying is straightforward but effective. Max Decay first to maximize your lane dominance. Take 1 point in Tombstone early, usually at level 2. Add 1 point in Soul Rip if you really need it. If not, do not. Just keep maxing out your Q and your E. This setup ensures that you have constant lane pressure while also being ready to participate in early fights. Of course, if they have ways to kill your tomb quick, then you might want to just max out your W instead of maxing out your E after you max the Q. But maxing your Q never changes. You always max Decay. Undying's itemization has 2 main parts depending on what your team needs. The first one being the Aura tank build. This is the most common approach in high level play. Start with Phase Boots, a Magic Wand, and a Soul Ring to solve your early mana issues. From there, build a Crimson Guard against physical lineups or Pipe of Insight against heavy magic damage. These 2 auras alone make your entire team harder to kill in mid-game fight. After auras, items like Aghanim Scepter and Octarine Core allow you to spam Decay more often and keep contributing in late fight. Eventually, Heart of Terra solidifies you as an unkillable frontline hero. Situational pickups like Shiva's Guard or Assault Kurais add even more utility when armor is needed. The second build, which is the one that I kind of prefer, is the carry or hybrid build. In some games, your team might lack damage. In that case, you can go for a semi-carry build after Phase Boot by Echo Saber, later upgraded into a Harpoon, and follow it with a Octarine Core into an Aghanim Scepter. So this lets you deal much more damage damage while still being tanky, especially when you stack decay in fight. This build is riskier but can snowball games quickly if you dominate early. If you fall behind, however, it's less forgiving than the aura part. In most matches, you'll end up with a hybrid approach, auras first, then scaling into Octarine Aghanims for extra impact. The flexibility of Undying's items progression is one of the biggest strengths, one of his biggest strengths. Okay, so once the laning stage breaks down, Undying shines by applying constant pressure on the map. As an offlaner, your job mid-game is to create space and force reactions, either by grouping with your team to push objectives or planting yourself in convenient places for the enemy. Undying might not be a traditional split pusher, but he's extremely good at occupying the enemy jungle or safe lane and being hard to shove out. This is similar to how one would play a Timbersaw or Bristleback that hits an early timing, walk at the enemy and demand they respond. Right after laning, if you're strong, say you have your face boots, wand, and one aura item or hefty level advantage, consider making a rotation to take the safe lane tower. You can call your supports on mid to join. Tombstone is a fantastic tool for early tower dives and skirmishes. Okay, when I say safe lane tower, this is only because you have definitely taken the mid tier 1 tower and the offlane tier 1 tower. Okay, if you have not done those two, I wouldn't really spend a lot of time on the safe lane tower. You even would say that you want to go for the offlane tier 2 first over the safe lane tier 1. Yeah, it just makes more sense in terms of how you play the map. Yeah, for example, you can drop Tombstone behind their tier 1 tower and pressure the enemy carry out. While your team hits the tower, the zombies will make it hard for any defenders to approach. Because Undying isn't the best at directly hitting towers, his damage is okay with decay stacks, but he has no built-in push like Liquid Fire or Diabolic. So using Tombstone to secure an area and creeps is key. Some players will even pick up that Meteor Hammer or a Siege Creep neutral item to help push. The important part is that you lead the team first tower aggression. Your hero is meant to group and fight early. As one Redditor noted, almost every strong offlaner either takes the offlane tower at level 6 or threaten kills. Undying doesn't have a single big ultimate that deletes towers like DK's Dragon Form or DP's ulti, but he still needs to translate a one lane into map control, so play proactively, suggest fights and objective takes when you're strong instead of passively farming. Speaking of farming, Undying actually farms faster than many assume, but you have to use your spells to do it. In mid-game, spam decay on creep waves and stack camps to clear them. Thanks to his decay damage talent, which is now available earlier in the game, Undying can clear creep waves with a couple of decays, by couple I mean 2, and finish them off with a few hits. You don't even need the hits anymore. Like this was back then, you needed the hits, but now it's just 2 decays and bam, the wave's gone. Okay, one Immortal Undying spammer pointed out that if you take the plus decay damage talent, you can farm very fast and even take stack neutrals easily with decay spam. So each decay deals AoE magic damage, which in recent patches even does bonus damage to creep to help Undying scale. Combine this with Soul Ring and perhaps a Arcane Boots or Chakra Magic from your ally, you can pretty much keep decay on cooldown to shove lanes safely. Keep lanes pushed out to force enemy rotations, then collapse with your team to punish isolated opponents who go to defend. Now rotations. Undying is excellent at fighting around choke points and objectives. Try to team up with your position 4 and invade the enemy jungle or contest runes around 8 to 12 minute mark. If you drop the tombstone on a cliff or in the river during a skirmish, it often secures the fight because the enemy either retreats or feeds trying to kill it. High level players will often coordinate fight around power runes or enemy stack, because Undying in those early scrappy fights is a nightmare to deal with. Use Flash Golem, your ultimate, in these mid-game fights for the slow and the damage amplification, and also if you take the correct facet, which is the one where every time you hit with Flash Golem, you spawn a zombie on the guy, you become super strong. Yeah, so Flash Golem's bonus move speed was nerfed in 7.39c, now a flat plus 20 instead of scaling higher, but it still gives you a little boost to chase. More importantly, it significantly increases your tankiness. Flash Golem increases your strength and grants bonus HP based on your strength. Always pop Flash Golem at the start of a team fight to get the full duration value. The slow aura and damage amplification will contribute over the entire fight. During the mid game, you have 2 general modes, group and push. If your team is ready to fight, lead the charge, put Tombstone down in a protected spot when sieging, like behind your team or on a hill near the tower, so that if the enemy initiates, they are fighting into zombies immediately. Your presence with auras and perhaps a mech or pipe is active will allow your team to sustain through enemy poke. Don't be afraid to dive tier 2 towers early if you're far ahead. Undying with plus 10 with 10 plus decay stacks and Flash Golem can tank a lot of tower shots. Just ensure your team follow-ups on on dives. You're not an initiator with a hard stun, so coordinate with someone who can stun. Maybe your support lands a stun or your mid jumps in, then you drop a tombstone and run into to draw focus. Extended fights favor Undying, so anytime you force a drawn out engagement around an objective, it's likely good for you. The next one would be to split pressure and occupy. If your team isn't grouping, maybe your carry is still farming a crucial item, you can play a pseudo split push role. This means shove out the dangerous lanes like the offlane lane up to the enemy tier 2 using decay and occupy enemy jungle camps. Just do what an offlaner is supposed to do. You want the enemy to waste time dealing with you. Undying can be hard to gank if you position smartly, so keep a TP scroll to escape if needed. If they don't come for you, you might actually whittle down a tower with creeps and even use Tombstone to threaten it. A clever trick is use Tombstone as a zoning tool. Drop it when you're pressuring a tower or high ground, even if no fight is happening, to make the area dangerous for enemies to approach. Zombies will tank tower shots and siege creeps, or even tank Roshan for your team. Just know Tombstone is a long cooldown, so don't waste it if your team fight is likely to erupt elsewhere. By the 15 to 20 mark, you should identify key moments to fight. Undying is strongest in the mid game when Tombstone is king of fights. Coordinate with your team to take Roshan or defend Roshan. Undying is one of the best heroes around the Rosh pit. In a cramped Rosh fight, Tombstone on the high ground is essentially wins the zone, and the Flash Golems amplifies all damages Roshan takes. Many high MMR teams will pick Undying as specifically to secure early Roshan attempts for this reason. If your carry gets Aegis, you can really start closing the map down. In summary, mid-game Undying wants to constantly fight or threaten fights. Avoid falling into the trap of passively farming jungle for too long. You're not a Sven or a Medusa who scales by hitting creeps for 20 minutes. If you play too slow, you risk Undying falling off later without having pressed your advantage. This hero excels when setting a fast tempo. Dominate the lane, take early towers, control the enemy jungle, and keep the pressure up. Every few minutes ask yourself, can we force a fight right now? If the answer is yes, key cooldowns ready, item advantage in hand, rally your team and make it happen. Undying in 7.39D is often the pace setter for his team, translating early strength into map control and eventually victory. Teamfight positioning and strategy. So teamfights are where Undying truly earns his keep. A well-placed Tombstone and a beefy Undying in the middle of a brawl can single-handedly swing fights, but positioning and timing are everything. If you misuse your Tombstone or get burst down too early, you lose a lot of your impact. Here's how high-level players are approaching teamfights with Undying. First thing would be Tombstone placement. This is your most important contribution. Treat Tombstone like it's an ultimate. Its placement can win or lose the fight. As mentioned, find high ground or obscured positions to drop your Tombstone. Ideally, the enemy should have to either walk out of your position or waste valuable time to hit it. For example, placing Tombstone on a cliff or atop a building, if fighting near the Dire Outpost cliffs or Radiant Jungle cliffs, etc., makes it much harder to reach. In hectic fights, even plopping it behind a tree cluster or around a corner can buy it a couple of extra seconds of life, which is enough for zombies to overrun the enemy. Okay, so the next one is going to be frontline but don't feed. As Undying, you're a tank and a melee frontliner, but you're not suicidal. The enemy will often try to focus you after killing Tombstone, or if they can ignore the Tombstone, so they'll basically kite you and then eventually try to kill you. So your job is to stay alive as long as possible to keep applying decay and soaking damage. Position yourself just slightly in front of your teammates, enough that you're the first target the enemy sees, but not so far that you're isolated. Once the fight starts, weave in and out of the fray. A great Undying play is to run in with Flash Golems active, hit decays onto as many people as possible. Each decay stacks makes you tankier due to added strength and draw attention. If the enemy starts hitting you, that's good. They're not hitting your carry. You want to be targeted up to a point, just don't run so far ahead that your team can't full up and the enemies 5v1 you. Surviving is key because your Undying's impact is prolonged over the fight. The longer you live, the more decays you cast, stealing more strength, doing more damage, and the more zombies spawn from the Tombstone. A helpful mindset is to think yourself as a raid boss in fights. You enter with Flash Golem for maximum beefiness and the slow aura. You drop the Tombstone in a spot that zones the enemy and then you just refuse to die. Use Soul Reap to heal yourself at critical moments or heal an ally who's about to die. If focus fired, kite backwards a bit while your team punishes the enemy for chasing, and if they switch off you, turn back and keep wailing on them with decay and the right clicks. It's very much about balance. Don't be the first to die, but do soak as many spells and attention and as much attention as possible. Skilled Undying players wait for the enemy to commit key abilities then press forward fearlessly. For instance, if the enemy Lion and Lina blow their burst on your mid, that's your cue to charge in with Flash Golem. They'll have a hard time killing you without those spells, and they'll be slowed and taking bonus damage over the whole time. Undying pairs well with both aggressive laning supports and teamfight heavy lineups. In lane, you want partners who can either deal burst damage or provide reliable control. Heroes like Hoodwink, Scarlet Mage, Marcy or Crystal Maiden all allow you to convert Decay Harass into kills. In teamfights, Undying shines with allies who can keep their enemies locked in place. Mars, Enigma, Darkseer or Earthshaker all pair beautifully with Tombstone by forcing enemies to stay and fight under the zombie horde. Healing supports like Warlock or Dazzle also amplify Undying's playstyle, turning long fights completely in your favor. Key mistakes to avoid. Even with Undying's current strength, there are pitfalls that can turn these powers into a liability. Here are some key mistakes to avoid, as learn from high level players, experiences and common misplay. Overextending without support. A classic mistake is getting overconfident from strong lane and diving too far. Yes, Undying is tanky, especially with decay stacks and flash golem, but he is not invincible, particularly under enemy towers. If you dive 1v3 under a tower thinking Tombstone will carry you, a coordinated enemy can kill the tomb and then you. Remember, Undying has no built-in escape. If you go in too deep at the wrong time, you're not getting out. The next thing would be misplacing the tombstone. This is huge. A poorly placed tombstone is basically a waste of your strongest ability. Common error, dropping tombstone in the middle of the enemy team where they can instantly focus it. If you put it right next to 5 heroes, they can instantly all just hit it and the tombstone just dies. If you put it next to an agility carry or some carry with some high attack speed, he's just gonna A-click the tombstone and it's going to disappear in a matter of seconds. So you don't want that to be happening as well. The next thing would be ignoring mana sustain. So Undying spells are spammable, but he can run out of mana fast. A mistake some newer players make is not buying mana items or mangoes, and then after a few decays and one tombstone, you're completely out of mana, no contribution. So don't skip items like Soul Ring. If your spot has an arcane boost, that's great too, or Wand. In particular, skipping Soul Ring when you need it is a big mistake. One high level player noted that they tried skipping it and ran out of mana constantly. Okay, so the next thing would be failing to adapt the item build. Undying's item flexibility is a blessing, but it can be a curse if you make the wrong call. A mistake would be rigidly following one build every game. I used to do this a lot. It doesn't work, guys. Really, it doesn't work. Okay, so for example, rushing double auras, pipe crimson every game without considering if one is actually needed can backfire. If the enemy is almost all magic damage and you instead rush Crimson first, that's suboptimal. Or if your team is lacking lockdown and you don't consider a Blink Dagger or a Shiva or something like that, it can be detrimental to your team fight for your whole entire team. Then the next thing would be picking Undying into hard counters. While Undying is strong, certain heroes can make your game very difficult. Ursa is a notorious laner. His Fury Swipe negate your strength steal. He just builds damage the longer he hits you. And he can enrage out of slows. One of the high rank players flat out said that you need to ban Ursa when playing Undying offlane. If you see Ursa picked, understand that laning will be tough. You might need to play more cautiously. The other thing is that Ursa also can Fury Swipe. I think it's Fury Swipe. The W basically, he can start hitting so fucking fast that he can even clear out your tombstone. So Ursa is actually a pretty difficult hero to play against. Same time, in lane you kind of crush him, so it really depends. But out of lane it can be really difficult, so you have to build correctly. Another thing would be also to fight without tombstone, so that's another big mistake. We touched on this, but it bears repeating as it is a big mistake to avoid. Do not take a full-scale team fight when your tombstone or your flash golem are on cooldown. You are a significantly weaker hero without them in big fights. Sometimes you might poke or bait when tomb is down, but don't commit. So by avoiding these errors and learning from them when they inevitably happen, you will greatly improve your success with offlane Undying. In high level matches, the difference between a dominating Undying and a feedy one is often comes down to discipline and decision making. As one divine player put it, Undying can dumpster people with offlane Undying until mid divine bracket, then people wise up. Meaning up to a certain point, raw strength can carry you, but against smart opponents, you must play smart too. So tighten up those mistakes and you'll become an unkillable teamfight nightmare. So, Undying in 7.39D is still one of the most reliable offlaners to climb MMR with. His lane dominance sets the stage. His mid-game, auras and tombstone control fights, and his durability makes him a nightmare to deal with. If you coordinate well with your team, place tombstone wisely, and build according to the game, play to your strengths, Avoid common mistakes and you'll find that Undying can single-handedly shift games in your favor.